Hey there, welcome to The Explainer. This is where we take really big topics and, well, we break them down into stories that are super clear and easy to follow.
So today, we're going to take a trip, a journey down India's mighty rivers. Think of them as the arteries of the subcontinent. They've literally shaped everything: the geography, the culture, the history. We're talking from the super icy heights of the Himalayas all the way down to the tropical coasts. These aren't just rivers, they're the absolute lifeblood of the nation.
All right, so how do we even start to make sense of India's river map? It's pretty complex, right? Well, the best way to get our heads around it is to start with one really key distinction. Basically, there are two major systems that define how water flows across the entire subcontinent. So, on one hand, you've got the Himalayan rivers. These guys are perennial, which means they're fed by melting snow and glaciers, so they've got water flowing all year round. Then, on the other hand, you have the peninsular rivers down south. Now, they're a different story. They're mostly rain-fed, relying on the monsoons, which makes their flow, much more seasonal.
Okay, let's jump into our first major system, and we're starting with the big one, the most sacred, the most culturally significant of them all, the Ganga. You have to understand, its basin is one of the most fertile and jam-packed, densely populated regions on the entire planet.
And here's something really cool, a little-known fact for you. The Ganga doesn't actually start out as the Ganga. Nope, it begins its life as a river called the Bhagirathi, which flows from the Gangotri Glacier. It only gets its famous name later at this super important meeting point called Devprayag. That's where it merges with another river, the Alaknanda. And then, only then, does it begin its epic journey across the plains as the Ganga we all know.
So why is the Ganga so huge? Well, it's all about its massive network of tributaries. Think of it like a giant tree with tons of branches. The major ones that feed it from the north, they all start in the Himalayas. We're talking about rivers like the Gagara and the Kosi, and they just pour enormous amounts of water down from places like Tibet and Nepal.
And that's not all. From the south, it gets even more water from these really crucial right bank tributaries. The most famous one, of course, is the Yamuna. It's a huge river in its own right, starting from its own glacier, flowing past massive cities like Delhi and Agra, before it finally meets the Ganga at that sacred spot Prayagraj.
All right, let's pack our bags and head east. We're going to talk about a river that's just known for its raw, immense power. It creates some landscapes that are, well, they're truly one of a kind. I'm talking about the Brahmaputra. This thing is a beast. A river of incredible force and volume, just carving its path through Tibet and the eastern Himalayas.
So what makes the Brahmaputra so special? It's this: its incredible power to actually create and hold on to land right inside its own channel. The power is so immense that it has formed both the world's largest and the world's smallest inhabited river islands. How wild is that?
And that contrast just blows my mind. It perfectly shows you the scale of this river. On one side, you've got Majuli. It's this huge island, steeped in culture, famous for these unique monasteries they call satras. And then, on the complete other end of the spectrum, you have tiny little Umananda, which is basically a rocky outcrop with a famous temple on it. Two totally different worlds, and yet, both of them were created and are defined by the exact same river.
This river is a real globetrotter. It's truly transnational. And it actually changes its name, its identity, as it crosses borders. It kicks things off as the Sangpo up in Tibet. Then, when it enters India, it's called the Siang. And finally, it becomes the mighty Brahmaputra that we're talking about, getting juiced up by major tributaries like the Subansiri and the Teesta.
Okay, let's shift gears and head northwest. Here we run into the Indus system, and this is a big deal. It was the cradle of one of the world's most ancient civilizations. What really defines this system, what it's famous for, are its 5 major tributaries that all flow through the Punjab region. So here we've got a great little snapshot of the Panjnad. That's the 5 rivers that give the Punjab region its name. Punjab literally means land of 5 waters. And each one of these rivers has its own story, its own distinct origin and character. You've got the Chenab, which is the biggest tributary, and then you have the Sutlej, which starts its super long journey way over in Tibet.
But it's not just about the rivers, right? What are the other key geographical landmarks that are part of this whole system? Because, these rivers don't just exist in a vacuum. They're all connected to some really important lakes and wetlands along the way.
And these 3 spots are absolutely crucial points on the map for the Indus and its tributaries. You've got Lake Mansarovar, the sacred area where it all begins. Then there's Wooler Lake, a huge freshwater lake that gets its water from the Jhelum.
And finally, you have the Harike wetland, a super important ecosystem that forms right where the Bias and Sutlej rivers come together.
Okay, for the last leg of our journey, let's head south to the Indian Peninsula. Now, the river system down here is pretty much defined by one single, powerful geographical feature. It's the Western Ghats mountain range. Think of it as a giant wall that acts as a great divide, telling all the rivers whether they're going to flow east or west.
And this right here, this comparison, is the absolute key to understanding the whole peninsular system. It's pretty straightforward. The rivers that flow east take these long, gentle trips to the Bay of Bengal, and on their way, they build up these huge, fertile deltas. But the west-flowing rivers? Totally different. They have a much shorter, steeper drop to the Arabian Sea, so instead of deltas, they form these deep inlets called estuaries.
So those great east-flowing rivers, we're talking about giants like the Godavari and the Krishna, they kind of meander slowly across the Deccan Plateau. And as they get closer to the Bay of Bengal, they drop off all this rich silt. This creates these massive, super fertile deltas. In fact, people often call them the rice bowls of South India. They're absolutely vital for farming in the region.
Now, the west-flowing rivers, like the Narmada and the Tapi, are a whole other story. They're faster, more direct. They often carve their paths through these deep rift valleys, which are basically sunken blocks of land between hills. And what you get is a much more dramatic, rugged landscape as they race down to the Arabian Sea. So as we've seen on this incredible journey from glacier to coast, it's pretty clear these rivers are so much more than just blue lines on a map, right? They are true lifelines. They've nourished entire civilizations and ecosystems for thousands of years. And that leaves us with a pretty big question to think about. With all the pressures from climate change and a growing population, how are these absolutely vital arteries going to sustain the future of an entire subcontinent?